All right, everyone. Finally, I've got the Winchester 1873 advanced kit done. Halloween kind of put a brakes on it for a couple weeks. You guys flooded me so bad this Halloween that it took me a bit before I could do some edit changes in some parts. But I've got everything all done and all worked out. Um, on the website, there's the part list in the assembly diagrams folder. And of course, you're here on YouTube watching the assembly videos. So we'll go ahead and get this all set to the side. This is the way the kit comes right here. And I don't actually have the big spring stuck in the bag yet. But this is a kit. There'll be the magazine spring, and this is the magazine tube. This is actually in a Winchester 1873 spring that I get from a part supplier. That's for a real 1873. I looked at getting these remade from my spring manufacturer that I get all my springs from. We're still going back and forth. I wanted one that was a little bit lighter gauge, smaller gauge, because this is quite stiff. That's why the kit will only comes with 6 rounds. Because by the time you get up to about putting 8 in, this spring is adding so much tension on the bullets that it's a little bit ridiculous. But anyways. We'll go ahead and set this stuff to the side over here. Let's get this bag opened up. And we've got our little bag of smalls. This is our main receiver. This is our lever action. This is our foregrip. This is the bottom section of the main frame. These are our 3 barrel pieces, and this barrel is scaled off of information that I could find that took an average of 1873 barrels for their taper from chambered to barrel end. What the taper is, and there's an average because they weren't always exact. So I took an average of the rear and the front, and that's what the taper is actually on there. This is our 2 stock pieces. Lay these over here. And this is just the 3 cartridges for it. So I'm gonna lay the bag over here to the side. So basically, first off, cover the glue situation. What I use is a 2-part CA glue. It's basically thick super glue and an activator. And what the activator does, the CA glue is a slower setting than the thick super glue that you go buy in the store. It doesn't smoke like when it starts setting as much. It's very rare I've ever seen it actually smoke unless there's large quantities that you put and you hit it with activator. But the activator pretty much instantly sets the glue. This is the brand I've been using for the past couple of years, and I'm very happy now that I offer this on my website. And this is the exact size that you get. This is the aerosol activator and the glue itself. This glue, I don't know, well, I can't really hold it sideways. Oh, here, actually, I've added a second camera here. And if you see the glues right about there, this little bottle has already put together about 4 of these rifles in testing and stuff. So, but yeah, so this is on the website. I can't ship this stuff internationally because there's a lot of countries that don't allow aerosols, but then there's also a lot of countries that don't allow importing glue. Even though this glue, I forget exactly, Turkey or somewhere. Anyways, no, wait. Well, if I had better glasses, I could read that fine print on there. But anyways, This is probably the best glue that I've used in the past 14 years. As far as consistency go, I've never gotten a bad batch. I've never, you know, knock on some fake wood here, but everything's been good. Go ahead and get the top off the aerosol. What we're going to start with first, just to get it out of the way, is we're going to start and just do the barrel, and then we'll do the stock. That we'll get the big pieces out of the way and set off to the side. The barrel can only be assembled one way. This is the front part. You can't turn them the wrong direction, and you can't let's see. There's one end of the rear barrel that has 2 notches, and that's going to be for our barrel mount, which we will not put in with the barrel yet. We'll put the barrel mount into the frame first and then mount the barrel to the actual frame once it's done. It has 2 notches, so you can't, neither one of these notched ends will go in here. You can't put this one in. It's the wrong size. They will only fit together one way. And that's the way right there. So what we're going to do is go ahead, and it pretty much aligns itself where the barrel is completely straight, but it's not a bad idea to have a nice flat working surface here. So what we're going to do is, what I always tell everybody is, take your glue, put it all around your corner edge here, and then take the tip of the glue and kind of just rub the outer edge a little bit, and then cram it all together. This is going to be one of those things, though, that you kind of want to be a little bit fast on, just because even though you don't spray, even with this glue, you're not spraying it with activator yet, it still starts setting up slightly. If you're not using a CA glue with an activator and you're using thick super glue, you best be fast. That's all I'll say. So before we do that, we're going to test our fit. Fits pretty nice there. So we're going to get our glue down here. We're going to go ahead and get our glue all squirted around the edge and down in there. And if you can see, that's about what I did. So then I'm going to take the barrel and I'm going to push it together. Now I'm going to hold it this way just so I can hold some downward pressure and spray it. And if you're worried, you can take it back and lay it on a flat surface. But like I said, it pretty much makes itself perfectly straight. Now, what we'll want to do, because I just sprayed activator right here, and some of it will seep down inside. If you go to glue this right away, some of that activator can start activating that glue quicker than you want, and you may screw up and not, be able to get them together. But that's, just, I'm going to blow through this just to get rid of some of that activator. Now let's double check our fitment again for the front. Front works great. So now I'm going to let the glue get back to the bottom of the bottle. I'm going to go around this. And again, I apologize for the shakiness of my hands because, well, I've had too much coffee like normal. I go over that in every video. Pretty much, working for myself, I pretty much work 7 days a week. That's one of the downsides of working out of a shop that's by your house, is you're always there. You're always working on something, which I love it. Not complaining, just I live off coffee. So there we go. So that's our barrel. And like I said, you can mic this end and mic this end and go do some research. The taper is exactly what it should be. The twist inside the barrel is exactly what it should be from end to end. So we're going to lay the barrel over there out of the way. And we're going to go ahead and bring the stock over here. And the stock is just notched and goes together. And on this, once you assemble, whatever little seam you see here pretty much disappears, like when you prime and you'll do a light sanding before you paint or whatever. The seam pretty much disappears. So when I do this, I want to make sure that not only do I get it all around this leading edge right here, but I want to make sure I get it down in the notches as well. You can run some down the face right here, but the most important is making sure that you get these sides and walls mated together. So let me get my glue squish in here. And if you put it on the outer edge, you're going to get it to squish out when you put the parts together, which, I mean, is not that big of a deal, because between a razor blade and sanding, it pretty much will clean right up. So I'm just going to hold this for a few seconds because there's a lot of glue in there. Look on my other side, make sure I didn't get a whole mess squeeze out anywhere. Okay. So there's our finished stock. Then of course we'll have the stock plate that we can put on here. We'll do that once we open up this little bag of parts. Let's get the little bag open. Lots of little parts in here. Don't be overwhelmed. It's not as bad as it looks. I did successfully make it to where you can take this fully back apart just like the real thing, except for one thing, removing the barrel from the frame. That's the only part, because on the real one the barrel threads in, and getting those to line up for you to thread those in and get it to stop and turn in the correct place each time is next to impossible. Anyways, you'll have a little bag in here. It's got two little tiny parts. We'll address those when we get to that. So what we have here is we have our two side covers, which will, that's the right hand side and the left hand side. And by the way, anytime I say left or right hand side, I'm referring to if you're holding it. So left side, right side. So anytime I say left or right, that's what I'm referring to. Clean up any little boogies off of here. Let's go through our parts. This is our orange tip. We have our little bag of screws. This is our magazine tube cap that goes on the end. Once we kind of get it all together. We're going to need these two parts right here. And on the parts list, they're listed as upper and lower tang reinforcements. And what these are is when these parts, like the frame gets printed, it's printed coming up this way. So to strengthen this tang, these reinforcement parts are printed this way. So they're super, super, super strong. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to end up gluing this in right there, which will now give opposing print directions to this tang and make this super, super strong. And then we also have this bottom one that, if you notice, it's got a little dip in it, and so does right here. This gets glued in right here. So we're going to go ahead and add those in real quick. And we're just going to, this is the butt plate. Now the butt plate is printed in two parts because there's not really a flat surface to print except for right here. And I did print this at one point standing up on the edge. And the issue is it just gives you all those ugly step lines in your part. So you could spend hours smoothing out those stupid step parts, or it can be printed in two pieces and you've got one little seam line that when you prime and sand will pretty much disappear. Got some little leftover boogies here. And if y'all like that, this is another good way if you're like wanting to clean up a surface of these parts. You can take just a flat razor and hold it straight, and it does a great job. It removes just a small a tiny portion of the upper layer. So like this one had some boogies on it, so I just grabbed it for this assembly video. But you can just clean them all up nice and clean. And like I said, once we glue that together, it's one solid piece. It retains the actual shape of the real butt plate. So we're just going to set that off to the side. Once we get all the screws out, start screwing stuff together, we'll go ahead and glue this together, and then we'll put it on and go from there. So then we have our two pieces of our firing pin, and non-functioning firing pin for the people that like to watch over my videos and whine and cry and stuff about, oh, he's making real weapons. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. There's nothing here that even resembles a real firearm at all other than the look of it, period. End of story. This is our dust cover. This is the dust cover that goes up here, and it does function like it should. There's two parts to that. There's this little rail that gets glued in, and it completes this upper piece so that we have a rail. Reason this is a separate piece is you have sliding parts. This part is printed with print lines going this way. If this rail was left on here as one piece, its print lines would be going in the same direction as here. So all of it would be, and print lines hate sliding against print lines. So printing this prints flat. And so its print lines go this way, and the print lines on this go the opposite way. So when you put them together, other than there's boogies in here, they slide together just fine. So anyways, so we're going to set this stuff to the side. This is going to be the load door that goes onto here, and that flexes in when we push in bullets and stuff. Fake bullets. Let me reinforce that, fake bullets. This is going to be our forearm cap. I'm just removing a couple little hairies and boogies and stuff on here. So, and if anybody wants to know, this is just a PVC pipe or just a pipe reamer. You can get them at like Home Depot. I don't suggest getting one of these metal ones. It sucks. The plastic ones like at Home Depot or whatever, they have a plastic handle. It drags on this. This flops too much. And that's why this is in here. The ones I have in the shop are all the plastic ones. You're always trying to fight to keep it up so that you can try to put it on the part. And it does excellent. Like if you want to go around and trim a whole inside edge, it does it perfectly. This is going to be our hammer, and this is our trigger. This is our barrel mount that I was talking about that goes into the back of the barrel, back here. And this will slide all the way up to right about there. And the thing is what that is because this will be in here, and it forms the pocket that activates and latches our shell extractor. Because the shell extractor, everything works just like it should. It kicks out the shells, kicks them backwards, and everything works great. So there's our barrel mount. These are two parts of the mag ring that the magazine tube slides through that hangs underneath the barrel. And this is two parts because there is no flat spot except for here. So if I was to print this standing up on this bottom right here, your print lines would go this way. Not only would there be step marks coming over the curve, it would make this ring really weak. Well, doing it this way, when you join these together, the print lines are all going in a circle, makes this extremely strong. So we'll set that off to the side over here. Then we have our rear sight. And actually what we'll do is we can go ahead and put the stuff on the barrel before we get into this. That way we can just have the barrel kind of complete. This is our rear sight. This is the rear sight adjuster. It does function. you can put the rear sight adjuster in and set the rear sight to different heights, to lower the height or to raise the height of it, and it functions just like what a real rear sight would function. This is our front sight. This is our carrier assembly. This is what handles all the magic inside of the frame. When you put a shell in, you put it in from through the door, and it comes into here, and you can continue to feed them and stack them outward into the magazine. And so when you rack the lever action, it brings this arm up, and what this carrier does is it carries a bullet up to align it with the barrel, and when you pull the lever back, the firing pin and everything pushes the shell into the barrel, and then when you bring the lever back up, this comes back down and it skirts the firing pin. So it'll come down, skirts the firing pin. You fire, and when you pull back, it brings the shell out and ejects it out. And then as you continue to pull down, it brings another one up, and it just does it just does this motion the whole time as you're racking stuff. So this is the carrier. This is the carrier lift arm. That goes into a little slot right here, and it just moves freely. We'll cover that when we start putting the frame all together. So I'm going to set that off to the side over there, along with, where'd I put my firing pin? I just had it. Oh, there it is. My firing pin, the shell extractor. Okay. There's two of these. These are the flat springs that go inside and work. One works with the carrier. One works with this carrier arm. The other one works with the lever action. They're different. You can clearly see the difference. One has a notch cut out and it's a little bit shorter. That's going to be one of these small parts that's in the bag, goes on to the end of this spring. But we're going to set those springs off to the side. This is a little important, dude. This is what goes, you have this inside it goes inside the magazine. The spring is behind this, and then the spring goes down towards the end of the magazine tube. This is what the actual front of the bullets continue to push forward as you're loading bullets in. And this is the plunger that keeps tension on the bullets and pushes them back as you're racking them in and out. This is going to be, I'm trying to think of what the official name is. I think of it as a safety. It actually mounts down here and swivels, and it's a lock to lock your lever action up. So like when you're not racking it or whatever, you can turn this and it locks it, and it keeps the lever from being pulled down. Then you turn it out of the way and you'll be able to rack the lever. So we're going to set that off to the side. This is a pretty important little piece here. This piece mounts also in the barrel down here. And what this does is this is the mount for the forearm cap, or the foregrip cap. Now it also functions for another thing. On a real 1873, on the magazine ring, there's a little hole right there that has a pin that you knock in and out, and that pin is what locks this tube in place to keep the tube from coming out. Well, being as small as it is, and of course not metal, the easier thing to do is I move that responsibility from here to this piece. So when you screw the forearm cap onto the barrel to hold the foregrip cap on to hold the foregrip in place, the screws actually come in and ultimately end up, this circle here is where the magazine tube sets. And those two screws touch and push on the magazine and grip the magazine really, really tight to keep the magazine from sliding out. So I just move the responsibility from being the mag ring of holding the mag in to the screws that hold the cap on actually hold your mag in. Because either way, you've got to put the forearm and the cap on before you slide the tube in. The tube always has to come out first before you can take your foregrip off or your foregrip cap, which is how the real thing functions. And these little dudes, these are going to be our articulating arms that pull the firing pin back and forth. You know, of course, we'll go over these more when we get to that point, but I'm just going to show you. If you can see, there's an L in that printed in that part, and of course these parts are a little bit harder to see because the L on here is printed facing down, so it's in the shiny side. But you have L, L, and you have R, R. And I mean, pretty much when they go together, they get pushed together like that. And we're going to put in a pin for the rotation of this. So we're going to set these off to the side for right now. And this little dude here, this little guy, once we put the dust cover on, this little guy will, we slide the dust cover onto the frame and drop this in from below. And this little guy sits in here. And it then allows you to put this little screw in through the top. And this little guy is what the firing pin grabs and pushes the dust cover open and ejects a shell. And of course the dust cover stays back until you manually slide it forward, just like a real one. So, all right. So I believe we've covered all the parts there. Let's go ahead and just put the rest of the accessories on our barrel. And then we'll move to doing that right there. So on this barrel, each one of these dovetail cuts is a different size. Pretty much the only thing you need to remember is the end with the dovetail. There's this dovetail that's pretty far from that end. This dovetail is really close, and plus it's smaller taper than back here. This is going to be where your front sight goes. Now if you go to put these together, remember this is the front of the barrel. When you put the sight in, you want the excuse me, the highest point to the back. When you go to slide this in, like this slides in perfect, you know, no problem. We don't have to resize anything or shave an edge off. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. And whatever side you're going to slide in from, and this is one of these things that you'll want to pre-fit these parts. I bet I just left my, no, there we go. You're going to want to pre-fit these parts and probably paint them separate. If not, I mean, you can slide them together. Wipe that off. And you can use your fingers on both sides, except for when you get glue on it, like I just did, to make sure it's in the center. And you just want to make sure that it sets center line. And so you have the normal overhang, just like the real one does. So now the next thing we're going to do is let's get our mag ring, because that's the next thing back in line here. So on this mag ring, before we glue this together, inside here, you might, on the shiny side, which is the flat side of these, you might feel like a little lip or something. You can take one of these guys, or you can take a file, you know, whatever you want to use, like that, clean that up. Let me see if I got a little file here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. With the files, you can just go around at an angle, and you'll see that it pushes some stuff over, then go flat, and it takes the debris out. It's no problem. But for interior curves and stuff, I just prefer to use a little trimmer. And basically all we're wanting to do is make sure it's cleaned up enough to where that, okay, that goes over that, no problem. That goes over that, no problem. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to glue our fingers to the parts, because that's what I always do. You'll want to glue this together before you paint this, because when you glue this together, you can come back and take off any high spot around the edge where the two seams meet, and then paint it and be good. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the two flat edges and we're just going to put some glue on the mating surfaces there and glue it together, and we'll kind of hold it from 4 points. That'll make sure that the two parts are centered. And you know, once we stick this together, we also kind of want to squeeze it here to make sure that these are centered. It's fairly easy. So let's go ahead and we'll get us a little bit of glue. And as you can see, I just put a little bitty tiny bit around there. So I'm just going to take this dude and I'm going to squish her together. Get glue on my fingers because I squished some out. I'm going to make sure that it is where I want it. And I'm just going to spray. And if any comes out, I can just wipe off the edge. There we go. All right, so it's together. Now, again, like once you glue this together, you can take I wouldn't use a round one, but you can take a flat file if you want to, or even sandpaper and just go right around the edge of that in the center. And you can knock off if you have a little bit there. The only thing these are not good at is going around the outside of a curve, like a curved surface. It wants to skip off. The way it's designed to dig in to just a certain depth on the outside of on the inside of a circle. So anyways, but I still use them for both. Now that we have this together, like I said, it's the next dovetail back from the front sight. So if we slide this together, it'll slide right in. Now, if yours doesn't slide right in, it's no big deal. You don't have to do a bunch of like filing or any of that stuff to the barrel or anything. All you need to do is on your dovetail, the outermost thin edge right here, you can just barely take a little bit off of each side of that edge, and that will fit it to the dovetail just fine. So what we're going to do is now I'm going to again, most of you, depend on again the quality and the finished look of your kit will just depend on how much time you actually want to put into your paint job and all that stuff. I'm telling you now, I have people that send me pictures that you can't distinguish the difference between a real version and one of my kits by the time they get done with their paint job. So you can go all the way from just quickly wanting to spray paint parts and slap it together all the way to absolutely positively beautiful, you know, finish and stuff. So what we're going to do is the same thing. I'm going to put a little glue on this side so that when I put this on, I can kind of hold it at an angle a little bit to get the glue under there, and then slide this in and use my fingers on both sides to make sure it's centered, and then we'll let it dry. So, and this mag ring is the same front and back, so you don't have to worry about it twisting. There's not a front and back to it is what I'm getting at. So we're going to slide that in. We're going to use our fingers on both sides. And some of y'all may prefer to put this together and then paint the barrel, which is perfectly fine, because I purposely make enough of an indentation around the dovetails and around the parts when they join that, like, if you were to put this together and prime this, you could come back with a small pick or file and come through and sand your groove out, even though I've left a pretty nice groove, but you know, some of us prime and paint thicker than others. But you can clean that right up and do everything all at one part. It's no big deal. So then the next part we want to do is we want to do the forearm retainer. And again, if you go to put these in here, let me turn this so you guys can see it, not just myself. So see, that fits kind of tight, and it looks like there's a little bit of a boogie right there. Okay, so this one fits purposely tight, tighter than the rest do. If you find that it's too tight, again, all you have to do is come back to the dovetail edge and just take the slightest little bit off the edge. And like I said, you can do it with a file, you can do it with one of these. I suggest having one of these around no matter what, because they're extremely useful for anything to do. You can even ream off metal and stuff. Some of them are better blades than other, but so you take the little part off, and then we're going to slide this in. This is how it's going to end up looking. And again, we want to make sure it's centered. If it's off just a hair, you don't need to sit down with a ruler and try to get it dead on exact. But you also don't want it set off to the side too much. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on one side there. I'm going to take my dude and I'm going to slide it in. And I'm going to get it centered. If there's any glue anywhere that needs to be wiped off. Okay. So now that's in there centered. That's all together. So what we can do now is we're going to move to our rear sight. And I can already see that there's a little piece under here on the dovetail that I need to remove. That was just support material. It'll pop right off. There we go. Now, this rear sight, of course, this is the rear of the rear sight. This is the front of the rear sight. And you, of course, want the rear sight to the rear. So what we're going to do is this one will probably be a tight fit, which this one I don't really glue in. And like I said, you can shave off the edge of the dovetail to get it to slide in easier. I normally don't glue this one in because it's a nice tight fit, and if you ever break this rear sight, you can just contact me and I can get you another rear sight. But this will be most likely the thing you'll break before you would break anything else, just from getting it hung on something. But here's our adjuster, and we're going to take our adjuster and we're going to pop it down in there. And so if you see the sight is setting up that much, if we want to pull this up, we can go all the way to having the adjuster up high, and we can let it click down to whatever height that we want it and stuff. So there's our 1873 barrel. What I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to take the barrel mount, and it only goes in one way. I just want to make sure it's clear and with sliding with the barrel mount, so we know we're good there. So the barrel is done as far as everything that needs to be done to it. Our stock is done. What we'll go ahead and do is, because once this starts getting longer and longer, it will be harder and harder for me to show you on camera what I'm doing. So we'll go ahead and dump out this little bag of screws here. And what we have here is there's only one actual metal spring in this, and this is for the hammer and trigger. Make a little pile over here off to the side. My glue's probably gonna close up on me here in a minute. Anyways, so let's dig through here real quick. We're gonna have 3 dowel pins in here, or actually, I'm sorry, 4. Is it 3 or 4? It's 3. You've got 2 that are the same length longer, and then a shorter one. And we'll go over that when we start putting those in. You've got a 1-inch long screw, which will actually be the screw that goes through the left-hand load door and screws into the back side of the right-hand cover. Left cover, right-hand load door. Then you've got a bunch of set screws, and just for those of that you ask, and yes, some people don't know, and that's perfectly fine. A set screw, the screw heads are not missing. They're supposed to be headless screws, and I'll show you. First, you've got 4 that are longer and 3 that are shorter. Okay, The 3 will sometimes in these kits be black or be the silver color. It just depends because my screw supplier varies on the color that they carry for the exact length that I need, but these are internal, so it literally doesn't matter. So I'm going to set these off to the side over here and I'll show you what I was talking about. If you look down in here, an Allen wrench fits in there, or an Allen bit driver. And I probably don't have an Allen on here. I probably have a Torx, but it fits into the end, and that's how you can screw these in. So we're going to set that off to the side. Let's see, we've got these two. Whoops, if I just can hold on to stuff. These two right here, these oval head, these are going to be what holds our butt plate on. So those are the ones that we want to get out. These two fatter ones, these are the ones that are going to screw in, one here, which screws the frame to the stock, and the bottom of the frame to the bottom of the stock. I see a little hanging on piece that I need to clean off. Okay. And then we have a bunch of various different size screws here, which we'll go over as we get ready to start assembling the main part that takes the majority of the screws. So let's go ahead and we'll get our little plate here. And you'll notice these have notches on them. Those notches on both sides are opposing each other. So it's made to actually snap, and it locks them together. Excuse me. Locks these together, makes putting them together so much easier. So I'm just going to take this, and all we're going to do is we're just going to come down and put some glue all the way down the mating surface that mates to this surface, and that's all we're going to do. May have left my glue set open too long here and have to deal with, no, it's coming out. Okay, so I just squeeze a little bit till there's a bubble and stop squeezing, and then wipe that bubble across the surface of this. And you can get it on the tabs if you want to. It's not necessary. The tabs are more for alignment purposes. Well, let me get this so I can put it together and you guys can see. Because it does me no good if you guys can see and I can't see what I'm doing. So I'm just kind of squeezing it together. Okay. Like I said, once you glue this together and you prime this and you start sanding, the little seam that goes down it will pretty much disappear. And again, a light coat of primer, like the filler primer, is what I suggest. Spray, let it cure, sand. That filler primer sands so nice and smooth. You can sand it real quick and you can even do another coat and sand it real quick and you're done. Basically, there's a screw that goes on the top and a screw that goes in the back. So what we're going to do is it goes on just like this. And yes, the butt stock is purposely on the sides a little bit wider than what the stock is. And from my thousands upon thousands of reference photos that I went through back in 1873, and I'm not talking about current reproductions, I'm talking about 1873 models built in 1873. This right here was just a little bit wider than the curve here. I'm not sure if that was because they manufactured these and then the guys that handled reproducing the shape of the stock over and over and over and over again, if it became an issue to where once these were screwed on, there was a slight little edge bulge here, because I could very easily see the machinist making the butt plate, and then the guys that handle all the wood furniture, you know, making and sanding and going around these edges, profiling it to their template profile that they have, where this part could be slightly different or lower So pretty much, I think that's kind of what most of that was. Well, where the heck is my screwdriver? Just a sec here. Where the heck is my screwdriver? Okay, I found it. I had to actually run out to the shop and grab it. I have flat blades in my little bit set, but this is a better fit. This is back from my old mechanic days, one of my Cornwell screwdrivers, but it's been through a lot. So on these screws, pretty much all you got to do is just stick them to the hole and give them a little twist with your finger. And now those of you that have bought and watched my other assembly videos, when I talk about using my belly, you couldn't see before. Well, now you can see. Your belly is your best third hand, is all I'm going to say. So we're going to take this and we're just going to screw this in. And this, again, this is one of these things that you could do before you paint, just so that, well, just like that, I just skid it off, and that you would have just been screaming that you cut your paint. Just so that goes ahead and cut your threads. And the nice long-winded screws here. All right, screw in, butt plates on, good to go. So now our stock is complete, our barrel is complete. So now we get down to the fun part. So we're going to start with this guy right here, and we're going to assemble this. So what we're going to need is our hammer, our trigger, the spring, and 2 of the longer set screws. Then the tang reinforcement and the bottom frame mount. All right, so what we're going to do is, first I'm going to do something that I shouldn't do, use my teeth to clean off the glue that's dried on the end of this because it's been open as we're talking. Let's see, did I? Here we go. All right, so basically when we glue this tang support in, we want to run glue around the inside on this wall, all the way around the wall. Then we want to come in and get some on the bottom here. Try to stay away from this hole right here, because this hole is where we have to put another set screw in that holds the lock lever for the lever action. But it's important to get this reinforcement glued to the sidewalls, especially when you get back here in this curve, because when we screw the stock onto this, the stock screw doesn't actually clamp down on this. It only clamps down on this. This ends up making the back side of that hole. So once this is all together, this functions as one piece. So I'm going to go ahead and set that off of there. And the other thing you can do is put this in here and see where you need to stop with your glue. You don't need to come all the way to the end. So I'm just going to take my glue, and is my glue coming out? My glue's not coming out. Hang on a second. That's one thing, I'm sitting here talking to you guys and my glue is just, well, gluing shut. There we go. I have to clean all that off my file later, but it is what it is. All right, now, do I have glue coming out now? I do not. Oh, I think I've sat here with it open for so long that it's went way down. And normally I have something that's a smaller diameter, but of course I'm not prepared. So, well, and I also don't leave my glue open this long either. I'm normally really good about popping the top back on it as I'm doing each thing. But I keep getting sidetracked talking. Do I have glue coming out now? Oh, I do. Oh, catch it. Okay. Just gonna put us a fat little bead there and a fat little bead there. Like I said, we're going to try to stay away from our hole right there. Now you're probably going to get squishing. Basically, I'll say if you need to have squishing. That way you know that you got enough. And of course, look on the bottom and make sure nothing come out. I'm going to wipe that clean. I'm going to take my dude here and spray it. And now I'm holding pressure back this way and down. Because like I said, we want this to be a solid locked piece. All right. So there we go. Nice and solid. Well, you know what? Actually, let's bring over 3 set screws and our lever lock. We'll deal with all that together at the same time. So next, I'm going to put the top on my glue. Practice what I preach, huh? We're going to take our trigger and put it in. So here's what I say. You can use Allen wrenches to put this to put in the little set screws and stuff. It's so much easier to have a driver set. Run to Harbor Freight or something, and $10 you get a driver set that pretty much has all the bits in it that you could ever need for small stuff. I mean, it's just one of those things that make your life easier. The hole we're going to deal with is this hole right here, because this is the hammer hole, this is the trigger hole. So what I do is I put these on here. I look from one direction, do a little half twist, look from another direction, do a half twist. And it bites in and starts just fine and easy. Basically what I mean is, like, I'm looking, so from your vantage right now, ah, crap. Hello, how long has that been out of focus? I'm looking for 90 degree to the body here. And when I rotate it, I'm looking for 90 degree to the body here. And then once it is, let's go ahead and just screw this in. And before we put the trigger in the way and block our view, let's screw this in and make sure that we're going to hit the hole on the other side. Which, if you are off or crooked, it's no big deal. That's the good thing about these cutting threads. So if you notice down in there, I did hit the hole. It lines up. Right there it is. So I'm going to go ahead and back this out before I go into the other side. Okay, and I backed it out enough to where it's just sitting flush inside there. We're going to get our trigger. We're going to drop our trigger in there. Now this is where you kind of have to hold your tongue just right. And I'm trying to, here, actually I'll just do it blind here and see if I can find the hole. And the reason being is because when you start screwing this in, you want to make sure that you hit the hole. And if you don't, you're going to notice you start spreading the body and the trigger instantly binds up. It's no big deal, just back it up. We're going to want to move it around. Okay, doing this blind is not working. Move up here and, okay. So you see where the hole's at. You come down, you try to put it where the, you guys can hold this and look from the other side. I'm trying to, okay. You guys are just gonna have to deal with me here and let me look from the other side, okay? There we go. See, when you look from the other side, it's easy peasy. Now what I do is, you don't have to squeeze this together. I just hold it the width that it is, so that we don't have to worry about running into, when it starts threading in the other side, it pushes apart before it threads in. And you're going to want to screw this until it's flush. So it's flush with this side and it comes out and it doesn't stick out here. And so this is our trigger, okay? So now we're going to want to put the hammer in. So we're going to do the exact same thing with the hammer. We're going to take our set screw. We're going to 90 degree that way with a little half turn, 90 degree that way with a half turn. And you can adjust it as your doing your little half turn, like that needs to come up a little bit. So there we go. All right. And I know I'm straight, so I'm going to put the hammer in the correct way, not the back way. So I just looked, I've kind of got it lined up there. It'll probably move on me 10 times. But like I said, if you start screwing and it starts pushing the walls apart, you've missed. Don't keep going because you're going to crack everything. And then we're going to, why is my camera? I think I'm getting too midway close trying to show you guys. Okay, so there. So it's in flush. Good to go there. So this is where we're at right now. So if you pull the trigger, you notice there's a pocket right there and a pocket right there, okay? Basically, what we're going to want to do is just put it about halfway, and you can set the spring down into the trigger hole and kind of come back and push, and it will go down in there. Then we're going to take this spring and we're going to bend it over. There we go. Now, when you cock it, hold your finger right here, or the hammer is going to slam all the way forward. And that's just because once it's in here, this slams against the frame. So the first notch is the safety notch. And then the second notch is the full fire notch. So I'm just going to set this pretty much right about there. All right, on this guy, what we want to do is we want to, this is the lever lock. We want to, you know, do the 90-degree thing here. Check it both directions. Because what we're going to do is we're going to screw this in just a little bit. And then we're going to take it right back out. The reason we do that is we make sure that we size the hole properly, kind of get it started the right direction. Now in here, we want to take this dude and we want to come in from the back side. And I'll show you why we come in from the back side in just a second. So we go and get our 90, both directions. All right. And we'll screw and screw and screw and screw and screw. All right. And kind of hold it a little flush there. Now we're going to take our dude here and not screw it on crooked like I just did. Okay, dadgummit. Okay, there we go. And when we're screwing this on, don't put a lot of pressure on the outer tab. Just grab it and twist. And you'll get to a point, you'll also want to make sure that this is flush back here. And we'll get us another little turn in here. And now there is a gap between here and the bottom of this. You're not trying to get it flush. That gap is just like what the real one is, because the real one has a peg that comes up with a flat spring that holds tension on it. And so here's what we're looking for. We want to be able to turn it out of the way either way. So we're good to go there. All right. So now, before we start on too much else, let's get our rear tang in here. There's a shiny side and a dull side. Do the shiny side up, put it in here, see where you need to get glue and where you don't need to get glue. And we're going to do the exact same thing we did on the other one. We're going to shoot for glue around the wall and around on the floor. And in reality, building this kit does not take that long. About 15 minutes from beginning to end if you've put it together once already or twice. Not on my barrel. So I'm going to take this dude, I'm going to slide it in, I'm going to drop it in, I'm going to kind of slowly press it down and let it squish out glue, if there's any going to be squishing out. And there we go. This tang is now supported and it comes up into here. So that's why you want to make sure to get glue the full length of what this tang is, so that it now has mechanically connected this tang to in here into the actual body itself. So it's a mechanical connection that's locked in there. All right, so now we've got that together. Let my brain think here for a second. I started using this new silicone mat, and I like it because glue comes right off of it, but literally everything sticks to it. I have to use a microfiber cloth to wipe off dust and anything. I don't know if I liked my cutting board or my cutting mat that I had before, but it wasn't large enough, and larger ones just, they were always the wrong dimension no matter where I looked. I did find a company that would custom size me a cutting mat, but they were crazy. I'm talking about they wanted like $150 just for the custom size on top of the $200 for the size of the mat. So it was like $350 for the mat, and I'm just not that needy. I can work with what I have. So there's a few parts here. Let's go ahead and grab our carrier. We're going to check fitment, and we're going to talk about paint for a minute. All right, our carrier, this notched opening goes to the back, and it just slides up in the body. Now, what you want to keep in mind when you're painting, one, there's no need to paint the inside of the body in here. Anywhere is there a need to? Can you? Yeah. Do you need to? Absolutely not. This guy right here, all you see of it when it's together, besides when you throw it across your desk, is you see the bottom of it, and it comes up and you see about that much of it. And of course you see down inside where the bullets are at when the dust covers back. Now, when I say you don't need to paint down in here, of course, when the dust covers back and this is here, you see the inside of these walls. Like I said, you can paint. It's no big deal. I did leave enough gap. But remember, paint is a finish. It's not a wrap, a coat, a gobbed on. Always do light coats when you're painting. It's easier to put more on and extremely hard to take off. So nice little mist coat, let it fully cure. Another nice little mist coat. You're not trying. The biggest thing that I tell people when it comes to especially spray painting, you're not trying to get a solid coat with your first coat. You're not trying to get a solid coat with your second coat. When I paint things, sometimes it's my fourth, fifth one before it becomes even like a solid coat. Because I'm looking at misting it for the first coat, get that chemical reaction going, and right before it's fully cured, mist it with a second coat. And you can cascade that chemical reaction to keep it curing as it's hitting. Again though, if you do happen to put too much, it's this flat side, this one, and this one is all that you would have to sand back down. And again, there is gap in here to allow for paint. That's the way I do everything. I do everything within mind of what the normal amount of coats of paint are. But I'll also say on something like this, once you're done painting and everything's good to go and you clear coat everything, even if it's fully cured and you put it together and you get no stickiness, one of the things that I have found, especially with internal moving parts like this that are painted, use some baby powder. I'm not endorsing baby powder. I'm not saying anything good or bad about baby powder. I'm just saying baby powder in all of the inside and then blowing it out. Don't wipe it off. You can get rid of it to the point you can't tell there's any there. but it's talc powder is really good at preventing two painted surfaces from eventually, even two fully cured painted surfaces, spend enough time in contact, can develop like a, well, a contact. I don't know what, someone I'm sure will enlighten me a better term of it, but of course they're not permanent contacts. You can always push and pop them loose and stuff if something sets long enough. But that talc ensures that there's always a constant barrier between clear coated or painted surfaces. It's just like on some of my revolvers and stuff. I actually keep my and talc powder my shells, and that's just for going on in a revolver, but it makes them nice and slick and they go in and out of the chambers really good and easy and smooth. Same with this. So what we're going to do on this is, let me make sure I got my ducks in a row here on the correct order. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take this guy and we just slide it up in here, and it slides up in there just like it's supposed to, like a real one does. All right, let me make sure that I tell y'all to grab the correct screws. What we need are, let me double check here, because like I said, I've put 4 or 5 of these together already, but you know, even I need to keep my head wrapped around the screws and stuff. We need the 2 shorter oval head screws. These are going to go into the side right here. Well, one will go on this side, one will go on the other. Just get it started straight. And let me, and tighten it down. Take this, flip it over. We're going to put our second one in there. Okay. And now we're going to screw that in and tighten that down. And so now technically we could put the stock on here, but we don't want to have to deal with the weight of the stock while we're sitting here blah, 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 and dealing with all this. The first thing that we want to do is we have our dowel pins over here. Like I said, there's 2 long ones, 2 longer of the same, and then a shorter. Right now, we just want to take one of the longer ones. This hole right here is one that we need to put a push a dowel pin through. And now this one here, this is because I grabbed this kit, but I grabbed this sizing tool that I have specifically for this, and I size y'all's, but I grabbed all of this freshly off of a printer about 15 minutes before I came out here to do this. And what we're wanting to do is we want to push that in to where it's even with this level right here. So right now I still need to go in a little bit more. Now here's the thing, we're not gluing this in place. This is just a free floating pin that will sit here. So if you don't get it exact the first time, it's no big deal, okay? The next thing we need to do is we need to get our firing pin. We need the front, the rear. We need the shell extractor. Okay, so here we need 1 of the shorter set screws. We are going to need the second long dowel pin. Now that second long dowel pin goes right in here. And this one, I mean, you can set on a table and press them and get it in there even. But that's how that dowel pin sets, okay? And now we need the last long set screw. And this set screw is going to get screwed in to this bottom hole, and we're going to make sure it's 90. We don't want to go in too far because that set screw is what goes into the back of that and locks this firing pin together. But we get a kind of a quirky thing that we have to do here, unfortunately, but it's basically just like the real one is. So we're going to take our short set screw, and you see a hole here and a hole here for this top ridge. We want to take this set screw and we want to start that set screw and make sure it's straight. Also, don't be using power tools to put your screws in, or your set screws, or anything. Power tools go to have a revolution, and you would not believe how high of a temperature you create with the friction of trying to thread things in. So what we want to do is we just want to put this set screw in and make sure that we have it backed out enough to where it's flush, because this guy has to go in here. But we can't put it in yet. What we have to do is this firing pin goes up inside this hole, and once this is screwed in, this firing pin will go straight in there. But if you notice a notch right there, what we want to do is we have got to pull this firing pin back enough to let that go through. I'm trying to watch the camera and that. And so see, it just sits down in there. And while we have our finger on it, we have to be careful because it will cock it upward. We're just going to take this and we're going to screw this in. And go slow, because you want to make sure that you actually hit the hole for the shell extractor. And we're going to screw this down in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to screw this just past flush. And I'm trying to hold this so I can actually see it. Okay, so if you notice, it's flush right there. If you flip it over, it's still in there quite a bit. So at this point, I can kind of stop holding it so awkwardly. Go ahead and screw in so that it's down in there flush a little bit. And then we're going to come over and down, it's down in there flush a little bit. What happens is when we flip it back, see, this now goes in here without a problem, okay? Let me clean off a little boogie that I see right here. Come here. And you know, your firing pin, you'll have painted it before you put it in, but pre-assembling is an important thing. So when we put this rear firing pin in, and by the way, there's your nice and strong. You're on your rear firing pin, you'll see this notch. You want this notch facing the hammer. And what you're going to do is you're going to put this in, but it won't quite fit. You'll pull the rest of the way down on the hammer. And now I am going to push this down into the front firing pin. And I'm going to go back here and I'm going to twist this, well, so it's not crooked. That's what we're looking for. We want it to be flat. And so what we do is now we bring this firing pin back far enough to get our Allen in there and start screwing, and it should go right into the hole of that firing pin. If not, you may not have it pushed all the way in. But what we're going to do is, this is really important, just screw until it feels like it's about to stop, and stop. Because if you keep screwing, you're going to bust through the other side of your firing pin. You don't want to do that. So the good rule of thumb is I just stop when it's flush right there. If you keep going, you're going to screw up. But basically, that's what ends up happening right there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, and let me bring my camera down a little bit, zoom in a bit, so because we're going to start working on the inside here, and my big old hands in the way of everything kind of will mess everything up. So what we want to do first, grab your load lever and your other dowel pin and make sure that you can press it into here, and so that we're not fighting with that later, and go ahead and take it out. We just want to make sure that we got clearance on that. So now we need our carrier and our carrier arm. Also on this, the one things that you want for troubleshooting, and we'll go ahead and cover it now, if you have issues with like this coming up and it's kind of like getting hung, bringing your bullet up, on the front side there's this slope. There may be like a little lip right there. Just go around it, because what you're wanting is you're wanting a smooth transition there. You're also, this prints on a plate like this, so you also want to make sure that you don't have a flared edge going around there, or a flared edge on this very bottom. Again, like I'll show you, like we can take a file and go around the edges, and then once we've gone a little bit, change your angle with the file, and it will go ahead and take what you filed on there, take it off. It's really hard to show you guys with a round file. I'm not really sure why even I have a round file in here. I'm sure I was doing something with it. But just go through, make sure you know everything's good to go. You don't have any goofy stuff on there. What we're going to want to do is, remember, this is the back of the carrier. So we want to slide this in like this. And if you notice this little opening that's right there, this lever goes into that opening, okay? And what happens is this lever will sets right down in here, and its hole lines up through all of these holes. So this lever doesn't allow the carrier to come down any further, and it doesn't allow it to move up. Like I said, this carrier arm is what raises the carrier up and down. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our lever for our lever action. Let me clean off some boogies here. Okay, we're going to take our lever for our lever action, and we're just going to slide it up in there, get our little lock out of the way. Turn our lock back if we want to. Okay, so you have the two longest screws in the kit, okay? We want to use the shorter of the two. So we're going to take this, and we're just going to kind of hand screw this in. Make sure, before I do that, let me make sure that everything is, let me get my head down in the way here. There we go. Wasn't lined up at all. All right, we're just going to hand screw this in for a bit. And we go and get our screwdriver. And we want to just start screwing this in. We want to make sure that we hold our carrier lever down so that its hole lines up. If you're screwing it and you start feeling a lot of tension, something is not lining up in the holes. So you need to stop, figure out what it is, and then put it back in place. Because you're going to get to a point that it starts getting pretty tight filling. That's because it's now cutting into this side of the body and making threads. It's not really making threads anywhere else other than just a close fit. Now, on this, if you tighten that down and you got drag in this, you're too tight. Back up. That still has drag. It's too tight. Because the problem is you need these parts rotating freely in here. So I'm going to back up a little bit more. That's still too tight. And I may actually need to clean my lever out a little bit. Okay, so that is still too tight. So what I'm going to do is I want to pull this back out. I'm trying something new here to show some troubleshooting as I'm building, instead of just doing this stuff and then at the end telling y'all some stuff to troubleshoot if you need to. Because I find it's better this way. At least that's what you guys have said when I've polled you guys on how y'all would like me to cover that stuff. So let's pull that back out, and let's take our screw. And our screw seems kind of loose. It's not too bad. I mean, it's threading in. We really don't want it to too much thread, but it can. Let's just make sure that we don't have any dude in there. Let's double check this guy. And that right there is probably what was causing the drag. That is way too tight of a fit. That needs to just be a loose fit. And that can happen. And again, as I'm cleaning these parts up and cleaning off support material and cleaning up edges for you guys, I miss stuff all the time. But we go over this because these are things that you guys need to know, that for model making, there's always fitment things that you need to do. This piece, this load lever, prints with just this section on the build surface. The rest of it's all supported. So you might get some squishing into this hole that, you know, it'll just change the diameter of the hole. So what we're going to do is just come in here, and you can do, look, you can do this sizing in many ways. If you don't have one of these, that's cool. You can have I probably don't have a Phillips screwdriver in here big enough to show you guys, or I might. Because since this is such a shallow hole, yeah, I don't have a Phillips screwdriver in here. But you can literally just take a Phillips screwdriver, stick it to the hole and spin it a few times and do it to the opposite side. And it will take out any of those imperfections that's in your way. Basically, that's what we're looking for. We just want, even if there's a little drag, we just want the screw to push in. We don't want an issue with it. So let's take our carrier, find our little square again in there, drop it down in there, get it to where it all sits where it's supposed to be. Take our lever action, and let me put my head down here in the way so I can see what the heck I'm doing. Okay, so we're all lined up. We're going to take our dude. We're going to put it back in here. Now you may notice, like, this bottom of the frame that we put in, it may be pushed down a little bit and not lined up right. As soon as you start to screw, it pulls it up nice and tight to it like it should, which is totally fine. That just allows it to all be brought up and where it should be. Trying to hold my mouth right here. Okay, so that's screwing in nice. Like I said, if we get going in here and all of a sudden we feel like a dead stop or huge resistance, then we may have ran into one of our parts that's supposed to swivel, because we have a lot of things that ride on this screw. Okay, so overly tight, that's a drag. And see, when it drags, it wants to pull up this carrier arm. These two have to coexist in the same space without interfering with one another. So that's not bad. There's still a little drag, but that's totally okay, because, you know, we work these parts, make sure they're all good and stuff. And see, if you notice, the carrier gets brought up. Okay, so we're going to take our dowel pin that we pushed in here, and we're going to push it back in here again. Since we made sure it fit, we want to make sure that it's even, which mine is not, I don't think. Hard for me to tell. May need to come this way just a bit. Not that big a deal. Once again, this is one of those things that when we start putting these arms in, that's going to make the big difference. But first, before we put in our articulating arms, we want to put in our springs. And let me see. What we're going to need here is, okay. I found my other screw. It was laying in the floor. It took me like 5 minutes to find it, but that's the fun of model making. We drop stuff. Okay, first, these two screws, the oval heads that I told you to put in here, are not the ones that go in there. They are the ones that go in here that we need. The one that I just had to find on the floor, and the other ones, these are the ones that go in the side over here. So no big deal. They're the exact same size screw. They just have a different shape on their head. You see, that's the fun part. I've built 5 of these already. And if you notice, let me take this out. What I just took out was an oval head. And there is the fillister head. The fillister head is what goes in here. The oval head's what go up front. But Uh, we'll straighten this out. Whoop. Take this one back out. It's funny, you wouldn't believe how many people contact me and they're like, and don't get me wrong, sometimes screws might be missing or this or that or whatever, because I'm only human, and my son that helps me, he's way more, he's way better at it than I am. He's very particular, and he puts together the screw kits, and for me the majority of the time, for him working for me part-time. But in dealing with all of these screws and all these different kits, like right now I'm working on 2 other designs all at the same time, which I kind of really need to stop doing that because it spreads me too thin all over the place. Anyways, like I said, we have 2 springs here. We have the one with the notch and one without the notch. We want the one without the notch, because what we're going to do is, you see the hole here, this spring gets mounted in there just like that. I'm trying to watch this autofocus. I don't know why it. Anyways, so what we'll want to do is go ahead and take one of the oval heads and screw this in. It's good whenever I make a mistake like that, that's not like altering and I have to go back and start all over on a video, because I do screw up. So I just screwed this screw in until it just started coming out of the top. And what we can do is let's use our lever lock. Keep all that out of our way. We want to lay this in here. And what we want to do is we just want to add a little bit of pressure. Like I'm pinching this together right there where it sits. And I'm saying that because I'm going to have to hold this in a weird angle. And I don't know if you guys will get to see. Okay. And these will tighten down pretty good and tight. Don't go Conan on them or anything. That's not needed, but they tighten down pretty tight. So if you notice, let me unlock this. When we pull this back, you see how it's raising up and it comes back and it settles back down. That's what holds like this entire lever up and down. Okay. So now the second one, we can go ahead and we'll put the screw in, get it started straight in here. All right. All right. So this little dude right here, some of you may ask, now remember there's 2 parts in here. One's a little bitty tiny part. Let's not lose it. Let's not drop it on the floor and have to look for 10 minutes for that piece. Okay. You've got this little bitty dude right here, okay? This little bitty arm. And you notice it's got a little notch in it right there. If you take it with that facing down, what we're going to glue is we're going to glue that head on there. So it looks just like this, okay? The reason this is 2 separate pieces is these springs are printed this way. So they are extremely freaking strong in holding their shape. Well, the way this factory spring is, it has a notch on it, just like this does. If I was to print this end on here all as one piece, that notch would have print lines that would run along that notch and would snap off the second you try to use it. But instead, this piece is printed flat like this. So all its layers are going the way it needs to for maximum strength. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to put just a little bit of glue in this little pocket right here. And then this gets glued on. This will be another, I glued my finger to the part, okay? Those are the fun ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put the glue on left-handed. Y'all know what I mean. Some things it seems impossible to do with opposite hands that you're used to doing. But so I got a little bit of glue in that pocket, and I'm going to spray that end. And I'm going to take that guy and I'm going to set it right in that pocket and watch that glue squish out. But this is one of these that we need this part to be glued together. Here we go. Glue my finger to it because I squeezed it. And this is one of those things, it doesn't even hurt if you want to come back and put a little bit of glue right there and wipe it, then spray it, you know, just to reinforce your connection. But these connections with this glue are pretty darn strong. So let's get our top back on our glue again. Now, this spring, once it's in and screwed on, this spring sets and actually rides. If you see the carrier arm that is right here, this is the carrier arm. If you see, this carrier arm has a notch in it, right? This is the spring for this carrier arm. And once we screw it down, it's going to be setting on top of this with that little notch that we just glued on. So what we can do is we don't have to put the spring up on the carrier arm yet. What I like to do is lay it off to the side of the carrier arm, but have this hole where it needs to be so that we can screw this spring in. Now, when you get to the point you start tightening, it'll have a tendency to want to turn this spring out this way. Now it's pretty tight. I'm going to take this screwdriver and I'm going to pull up on the spring. Here, hang on, there we go. And then I'm just going to move it over. And then I'm going to push it over real good. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to loosen it real quick, and holding over, I'm going to tighten it back down. Now what happens is when you come back, that carrier arm comes up, and if you notice, it sets in that pocket for that. And when you go to come down, and this is why it's so important to make sure this screw is not too tight and you're not causing drag between the carrier arm and the lever. And the reason being is because this carrier needs to stay up when this arm is coming back forward. And see, right now I've got a little too much drag. I will go adjust my screw, but this carrier arm has to stay up where it's at until it comes forward, until the lever comes forward and actually hits it and pulls it down. So I'm going to come over here, and this will be one of the other places that I tell you that what you need, that going in, and in this joint between these mating surfaces, you can use a silicone based lube or a PTFE based lube. Don't use WD-40. WD-40 is not a lubricant, but it's that is not good for paint, anything that's painted. The silicone based lube or the PTFE based lube won't interact with your clear coat and stuff, as long as it's like from like your normal spray paints and everything. But the other thing that works great in here is baby powder. Especially once, if you again, you see what's exposed right here. That can be painted. I wouldn't bother painting any of this stuff in here. The only thing I would paint is what is shown of the firing pin there and what is shown of the firing pin there. But as far as like from here up on the lever or any of the carrier arm, I wouldn't even bother painting any of that. It's not necessary to be painted unless you want to take it apart and you want to show the inside, which you can paint it then. But that being said, you can still paint all of this. Just be careful on the amount of paint you use. And make sure that each individual part is fully cured before you put them into a mating environment. Again, talcum powder, baby powder, will aid in two painted surfaces not adhering together if they're not 100% fully cured, or if they are even fully cured. But this is what we're looking for, the carrier arm to stay up until we get to there, okay? And it's important because the firing pin in this manner can slide, let me grab that, slide through the carrier. But if the firing pin's here and the carrier tries to come down, the carrier can't clear the firing pin. That's why the firing pin has this shape that's cut into it, because it's the same shape as the carrier, and that's how they designed it, so that the carrier can swoop past that once the firing pin has jammed the shell in that the carrier brought up. So normally the carrier right here would bring up a shell, so there would be a shell setting down in there that can't escape because the shell's too big to come out through the top. This firing pin, when you pull the lever back, jams the shell into the barrel, and then as the lever comes fully back, it brings this back down, and you'll hear a shell get slammed into the carrier waiting to go up next. And then when you rack this back again, this yanks the shell out with the shell extractor, and it comes back and hits, and it flips it out just as this is coming up for another shell. But now that I've gone through that whole long explanation, let's put it together and you'll see what I'm talking about. So what we're going to need now is we need these two dudes right here, okay? The last two small set screws. And we need our 4 arms. And remember what I covered before about there being an R, and if you hold it in the light just right, you'll see that has an L in it. We don't want the L, we want the R. You notice there's an R in it, so that's the matching. They go together, and you should be able to put them together just like this. Now these arms, you might see some boogies on them, because I went through and sized them for these dowel pins to slide in. And if I didn't do a good job of cleaning off where I sized them, it's no big deal, just knock off the little boogies. Some people freak out my video about me like using a razor blade, and they're like, you're going to end up cutting yourself. I've cut myself before, but anytime you're using a razor blade, always use a finger as a stop. Always have a stop finger. So like I'm pressing on this, I have a finger here, so I'm not actually freehand pushing this way. I am connected to this, and I'm just using my thumb and my forefinger. I'm not actually, because if I was separate trying to do this, 9 times out of 10, I'd slip off and hit my thumb. Just always when you're using a razor blade, just be careful and anchor your hand, and then you can get in and apply some pretty good force on what you're doing. But anyways, let's get our small set screw. And when you look at these, the little of the arm, the shiny side that has the R that's hard to read, that's the side that we want to go in first. And that's going to be the hardest side for us to get started. The reason we want to go in this side first is if we go in the other side, when that set screw comes through and hits this side, it's going to start spreading it. You're already going to get a little spreading, but you know, this minimizes that greatly. I'm just going in. As I'm going in, I'm making sure that I'm straight, and I am. And you'll feel it start biting. And you'll see what I'm talking about. This shiny side is a very, very tight fit. You can hear it screaming at me. Sounds kind of like a chimpanzee. As long as it doesn't start throwing feces, I'll be fine. Anyway, so we want to screw it in to where it's level or flush. There we go. We're flush now. Good Lord, we're already an hour and 40 minutes into this. That's crazy. But there's a lot to cover with this. All right, we need to go in just a little bit more. I want to clean up any little straggly boogies that I have. You want to make sure it's flush. It might need to go in just a hair bit more. There we go. So what we have now is we have this, and you can move it back and forth, and if you move it a few times, it'll become floppy, okay? So now we're going to go do the same thing to the left side over here. So we're just going to push these together, just like this. I'm going to take my razor with my finger anchored back here, and I'm using the motion of my hand to do any cleaning. You can use a razor to clean and be safe all at the same time. That being said, I have lopped my fingers open a couple times. I think one of the worst cuts I ever had was when I was a mechanic, and you can probably see this scar through my hand. It went all the way down and hit between where this bone and this bone joined together. It hooked in there nice and deep. That was a bleeder. The worst hand injury I've ever had is this finger right here was severed completely off and only held by skin and a little bit of the ligament on this side. And there's, I don't know if you can see on camera, there's a scar that runs down my hand. This is where the surgeon had it cut open. And anywhere you touch on this finger feels like you're touching my hand right here, because he had to use the nerve here to reconstruct the nerve in here and the joint. But that's $17,000 out of my pocket, not including what insurance. But he did a great job. He's a lovely man. I love him to death. He gave me a fully functional finger. Like I said, screw it in straight. Make sure it starts straight. We're going to go in, and I'm holding pressure on this side just so that we get as little spreading as possible, because we want it to be a nice fit. If I grossed any of y'all out with my cut off finger or my thing, you know, I apologize. All right. What's funny is I cut that finger off making something for my son before he was born, for something for his room, made out of stainless steel sheet. And it was a small piece clamped in a vise. And I had my hand laying on top of the vise and had a drill coming down. And at that time I was married and had my wedding ring. And as I came down into the stainless steel with the drill bit bound up on the square cut piece of stainless steel, and it popped it out of the vise and it swung it around, and the corner caught under my wedding ring and literally just rolled under the wedding ring and went boop, sliced right through it. My dog that I had at the time that was sitting there watching me do it, it slung blood across her face, and she just looked at me and I looked at her, and I think the look on her face was the same look that I probably had on my face, like, what in the heck just happened? But I actually had a vet clinic down the street from my house, is the one that wrapped my hand up and put pressure on it for me to be able to drive myself to the hospital, because by the time I got around the corner from my house, I had blood everywhere in my car and in my lap, and it was, you would not believe how much blood you have in the palm of your hand. But if I didn't gross you out enough before, then maybe that did it. Okay. So right side means right side, left side means left side. Now on this, the first couple times we push these in, like I say, I tried to fit these holes for the dowel pins already. We should be able to push this down, and of course, this dowel pin here has to align with this slot. So see, this dowel pin got pushed out whenever I went to put it in. So we just gotta, okay, so that dowel pin is wanting to fit all janky. So what we can do is push back from this side, pull one of these dowel pins out, and I can, let's see, it'll go that way. So the only thing that's stopping it is just a little bit of the boogies. Again, you could take a Phillips screwdriver and just stick it in the hole that's much bigger than the hole. And just take something and knock the boogies off the edge of it. Because that's all it's being is, well, it's being a booger, so. And they're a tight fit at first, which is totally okay. Let's go ahead and check this other one real quick. And it's always the shiny side that will be a pain in the butt. So we'll, again, don't want to go in there. Take that out. And I may or may not have sized these. Like I said, I pulled these off the plate real quick before I started this video and got everything bagged up. And what I'm doing when I say size these is this is not a drill bit. This is just a same size dowel as what the dowel pins are that I've purposely put a sharp edge on, and it will clear the holes just fine. And like I said, I normally do this before, but so we're good there. We're good there. Let's check this back hole on this one. Yeah. And go in both directions because it's this back direction that's the most important. I have people like, why don't you edit this out or that out? I mean, I don't want to edit anything out. I make mistakes too, and I screw up, but this is all part of troubleshooting, because if y'all go to put these on and you can't get them on the dowel pins, I mean, you'll know why. But like I said, 90% of the time, there we go, make sure that's lined up. I clearance these holes. This side over here is still trying to be a pain in the boot. All right, and we're going to put this side on. Well, I didn't mean to lock that down first. I want to put this pain in the butt one on first. And we want to squeeze from both sides. And here's the thing. Once these are all together and you've used them a bunch, they loosen up quite a bit. So so this is what we're working with here. So hang on a second. There we go. What I would suggest to do is before you try to finalize putting these together, like putting the covers and stuff on, is just make sure the dowel pins are sitting where they need to be sitting in these arms. Let me get my hand out of the way. It's hard to hold this. Lock the hammer back and quit hitting the trigger. And I'm just doing this a bunch of times because it will make all of this move nice and smooth. If you want, you can put some silicone or PTFE lube on here, which I haven't found a need to, because once you've worked this and you get everything set in like it should. Also note, if you don't come all the way back and then you try to go forward again, you might get dragging. You want full action. If you only come back a little bit and you try to go forward again, you didn't give it its full action. So just come all the way back. There we go. Make sure we ain't got no dust in there or anything. We'll set that to the side. What we're going to want to do now is we're going to want to take the load door, which is the right door, and the load lever, This is going to get glued in here with the notch facing inward, so both the rough sides. And when we glue this, we don't want to put glue all the way down this. We only want glue about I don't know, 1/4 of an inch up, because we need to maintain flexibility in here. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. If I got my top back on my glue in time. There we go. Now if you see, I only put it about 1/4 of the way back. And I just want to set this in here. I don't really want to like push it and squish it. And I'm going to let that like fully set up. There we go. I'll glue my finger to the side of it. And we want to make sure that's sitting there nice and square. Now what I usually do is I'll come back to the back side of this and I will go ahead and come around the edge about yay much and just wipe it smooth. Put the lid back on this. Now one thing is important to make sure that your dowels are setting flush like they should, is because if one's sticking out, of course it's going to hit the side plates. There's plenty of clearance in here between the side plates and these dowel pins and these arms, but you just got to make sure that you actually have the dowel pins set where they should. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is set this down first. The longest screw, the 1-inch screw, that goes in here, and the door just pops on this side. And now I hold the screw so I can, like from the back side, so I can see this hole right here. And then I take it and I line it up till I see that the screw goes in the hole. Then I kind of push back. It just makes it easier to line up that screw. Now on this, you don't want to put it super tight either because it'll start squeezing the body. But you can screw it in to where it stops, back it out a little bit. If you do this and you notice that it's a louder noise or more drag, then just loosen that off a little bit. So we're going to quit holding the trigger there. The way I'm holding it, trying to do this for you guys and do that, I keep hitting the trigger and firing the... So this is what we have now. So let's take our 6 bullets. We still have other stuff to do, but let's just take our 6 bullets and we're going to... I made these separate so that you guys can paint, of course, the shell and then put the head of them on here, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go through and I'm just going to put glue. I'm going to do one and then I'm going to do the other ones real quick. I'll put a little bit of glue and I'll show you guys, and then I'm going to quickly go through these. I just put a little bit of glue down around the edge and take that and do a little twist to make sure these set flush, because the length of these bullets is very important to the function of a gun. That's one of the problems that they had back then, was the length of the bullets had to be very consistent. This was a very badass gun back in the day, but there were things that needed to be very consistent, and cheaper ammunition that they would get, they would not always be consistent on the lead part of it, or even on the length of the jacket of the brass. Very specific. Let me do all 6 of these real quick. And again, one thing to remember, the lever action is made to be actioned all the way. You can't just go halfway and all that stuff because that's not the way the actions work in these guns. It requires a full action to work properly. All right, got one more to do. Okay. And again, you guys will have test fitted all of these, the bullets into the shell, into the cartridge before you start painting, and you'll do your little fine tuning of edges and stuff and all that good crap. Okay. All right, so let's set this off to the side. Before we put a bullet in, we need to put our barrel mount in. Now this barrel mount, you cannot put it in any way but the right way. When it's the right way, it'll go all the way in. Now here's the important part. I'm going to say before I even go any further, be cautious of where you get glue, because you do not want to get glue in this pocket here or in this bottom pocket. It's a very easy thing to do this correctly. What I do is I just, again, go around the upper inside edge here, put a bead, and then when I get ready to put this in, the big notch up here goes up top. I just make sure not to wipe any on there and push it in. If you want to be real careful, don't put any glue on this top notch, so you don't worry about getting it into that notch, okay? And it's not, you don't need a butt ton of glue, because when we go to glue the barrel on, we're going to have glue down inside the barrel, and we'll also put some glue on the face, the mating surface right here too, so that will be another chemical bond for this. So don't go nuts on this. You don't need to squish glue out everywhere. I'm going to go around my edge. I'm going to take my dude and I'm going to stick it right in there. Now I'm going to hold this and let me look down in here and make sure that I don't have any glue. I'm going to push that firing pin into it. And then at one point I'm going to pull the firing pin back just to make sure that I'm not actually gluing, and leave the firing pin set back. Okay, letting it glue. I don't think I hit that bottom very good. There we go. All right, there, it's set up then. There we go. All right, so we're in there nice and tight. So now we should go in with this, and it hits that, and then that last little bit really crams it in there. So again, like if you come halfway down and don't do the full stroke, you start binding with things. So it's a full stroke, you have to, okay? So to test this, let me put my glue back up real quick before we go any further. What you can do is take your finger and stick it in there, because we're going to take a bullet. And the first time you put a bullet in, the first couple times, it might be kind of a pain in the butt. But as you do it, any little burrs and stuff comes off. That's why I suggest assembling it this way, because we can take all of this right back apart except for the barrel mount out of this, and that's still no big deal. We can take it all right back apart, paint everything, and put it right back together. But pre-assembly is important. My finger is now pushing down on that bullet, and what I want to test, and again, let me get up here so my belly is here. So it brought the bullet up, it jammed the bullet in, and it just pulled the bullet out and flicked at me and hit me in my throat. So That's what we're looking for. So bullets in, throws out, kicks you in the face. And the more you do this, the smoother the action gets. I was sitting here with one of these on a test bed that I made, that the only thing that the test bed did was automatically sit here and do this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And the only thing that happened was it got smoother and smoother and smoother. It was very, very, very nice. So take that bullet and hit yourself in the eyeball with it, just like I did. So that's what we're looking for. We want nice, smooth, consistent action on that. We're going to set the bullets to the side real quick. And the one part that I dislike, we want to get the little bitty tiny dude out of here. Now this little bitty tiny dude can easily be lost. But you see this little dude? This is a little bitty spring that they used. This is the top rail that I mentioned earlier in the video that gets glued on just like this. Okay? Well, if you look at this rail, there's this notch in here. And if you look further down in this rail, there's another little pocket. And this spring sits down in there just like this, and it's up, raised. So let me see if I can find a way to hold this so y'all can see the back side. Well, that went about as well as I thought it would. Anyways, you see the little square pocket right there? That's where this little notch gets glued in. So you only put glue back here in this little bitty pocket, and then you will set the spring down in here, and you'll hold it with your finger, just like that, until it dries. This is another one of these probably going to glue your finger. But what fun is it if you can't get some glue on you? And how I'm going to put this glue in, I'm going to almost guarantee. So if you notice, I got glue down in that little bitty pocket. So what I want to do is be careful with this and set this and squeeze down on the back to make it pop up where it should set. Get my fingers out of there that were nicely glued. Now you can do this after you've glued this onto the top of this, but it's a pain in the butt. It's easier to do it when it's like this. We want to make sure we don't have any glue on here that's still wet or anything, so that when we set this on here and we test fit this and make sure that it's all, this is going to get glued in just like this, okay? That's all there is to it. So we're just going to put glue down in this channel and down on this face a little bit. So I've got so much dried glue on the end of my bottle here, it's ridiculous. So okay, so what I did was I put a little there, a little bit on that face, and then some down inside the walls there. So I want to take my body and I want to put it in there like this. I want to hold it down and back. And let that cure. While it's curing, take a look over here at our dude. And you might see some fuzzies or whatever in here. Clean all that up. This is our stop that I showed y'all earlier. And you're going to want to make sure that you put it in here and it sets like it's supposed to. that the hole lines up, that you don't have to fight with it too much, because this actually will ride. You see the circle cut? This actually rides right here. So what we're going to do, make sure that we don't have any glue in our channel. We're going to slide our guy on. Now this is the important part. You're going to run into this spring right here. So you want to take something, press this spring down, slide it over, and when you come to this hole, it's going to want to pop up and get in the way of the hole right there. So take you something and push it down. There you go. Push it past that. Now this dude right here, we've got to take, set right there, push it forward until the hole lines up. Okay. Then we take this little bitty guy right here and we hold our tongue just right. Give a little bitty twist just so it starts grabbing. And let's go in here. And I know it's sitting in there a bit crooked, but as soon as you get it and tighten it down, now you're good. So see, it brings it back and it stays forward like it should. Slide forward, closed. There you go. So there is the completed center section of this. I got to cock it all the way back. I'm sitting here telling you guys to make sure that you safety, full cock, safety, full cock. There we go. All right, so everything is moving as it should. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we can go ahead and put the barrel and the magazine and all that stuff together. So what we'll need is the magazine tube, and we're going to need the magazine plug. Now on this one, I've already glued the magazine plug in just because I'm going to be lazy right now. I'd already done this on another one that I was building. You just put glue around your edge and glue it really good into the end of this tube and let it be. Now the other end, you're going to want to test and make sure your plug goes in and out really good. I do file these edges for you guys, but you know, there might be a little boogie or something on the edge. Again, this will actually clear out metal as well, but I use a reamer. I'll use a reamer and size these down in here. As a lot of people are like, you know, all you do is click print. No, it's not. Clicking print's the easy part. It's cleaning up all the support material, sizing everything, getting everything together, bagging it, boxing it. The printing part is the easy part once you have a good model and good files. So what we're going to do is take our really super duper long spring here, and we're just going to slide it into here. Okay, and then we're just going to set our magazine off to the side. It's pretty much done. There's our plug for it. We want to get our barrel, get all our bullets out of the way here before we make a huge mess. All right, we want to get our barrel, and we want to slide our barrel. And again, the barrel only goes on one way. We want to check fitment here. We want to slide it in and make sure we don't have any little boogies in the way. Okay. So what we're going to do here is same thing. I'm going to put a good quantity of glue all down around this edge right here. Okay. And then I'm going to make sure that I get some glue on this outer edge. Not a huge amount, because of course when you push this together, you don't want glue squishing everywhere, but you do want glue. If you get glue that comes out, you can hold some downward pressure. Don't put too much pressure on your tang or anything. Again, this is going to be one of these belly things that you can hold your belly and take your finger and wipe it, make sure there's nothing there, and then spray it. So I'm going to get my glue here again. Let me clean off all the dry glue on the end. So now I'm going to take my glue, and this is going to be one of these things. If you're using regular super glue, you don't want to be slow, because you put glue in there, you better hurry and get it on there. And even with this, you don't want to be too god-awful slow. So here, you guys can see me with the other little camera. I'm just going to go in here and put me a good squadge of glue. Then I'm going to take this sucker, I'm going to put it the right way, and I'm going to jam it on there. Okay? Now, while holding pressure, I'm going to put this against my seat behind me. Now I'm holding forward pressure. Now I want to give it a minute to let that all get really good and activated. You know, if you're in a god-awful hurry, model building is not something you should be doing at the moment. Find a time when you get out of a hurry, sit down, take your time. I know if y'all are like me, excitement tends to get a hold of you and makes you want to hurry and hurry. I'm very bad about that. So we want to do a little wiggle. Okay, good. It's all set up like it should. Come back. We're going to do a test on everything. Okay. So now we need our foregrip cap. We need these two. Here, I forgot I zoomed the camera in. These are going to be to mount the stock to the rifle, and these are going to be to mount the cap to here. So what we're going to want to do is, you have this end and this end. It sits in there just like that. So it gets locked into the back here. Our front cap will go on, and what we're going to do is we're going to start and screw both of these screws in about halfway. And this will screw into the holes in the side of this little bracket. I'm just going to leave it sitting out a bit. We're going to bring this other one over here. We're going to do the same thing. Okay, now that we've done that. All right, so our plunger right here, this plunger, if you notice it's got a lip on it, it needs to go in that way. So if you look down, there's just a hole, and I've got it this way. Just drop her in. She's not going to flip around or anything. She'll go where she needs to go. So then we need to take our magazine with the spring this direction. We need to come forward and wiggle it around till we get through there. And yes, this is how a real one gets put together as well. So you want to push it and make sure that this plug sets about 1/8 of an inch back behind the end of the barrel. And so it all just boom, locks in there nice and tight. So then we're going to run our screws in while holding the magazine back a little bit. And don't go crazy, because the thing is these are being stopped by the magazine. These are dual purpose here. So you'll feel right when it starts dragging. And what you can do is pull forward on your magazine a little bit and see if you might need to tighten these a little bit more. But we should be good right there where we're at. So I'm going to go forward just a little bit more on that one. There we go. So now we got the barrel in here. I'm going to come back out. So now we've got the barrel all together. So let's check and make sure that our spring is seated the way it should. So we'll put one in. The first one just falls into the carrier. The second one, you'll feel it start pushing the spring. Third, fourth. Here, I'll wait. All right, so if you notice when I put these in, that this door doesn't pop all the way up. Well, these bullets are not actually all the way in. So right now, the bullet is pushing against the door. I'm using this, but what you'll do is you'll just use your finger and push, and you actually push it in, same thing you do with a real one, and lock it on the catch. So then what you do is you've got hit in the face 4 times. I'll be honest with you guys, when I did this for the first time and the ejector grabbed and pulled the shells out and smacked me in the face with them, I was so freaking thrilled. It was the coolest thing in the world, because every one of these parts are as identical to the real part as I could possibly get. But being that they're 3D printed, they have to be changed slightly to account for paint, to account for thermal expansion and contraction, to account for a lot of things, including this little piece is not made out of metal, it's made out of plastic. How am I going to make this perform the same way that I make a metal part perform? So the one thing that worked flawlessly from the very beginning was the shell extractor. And I was tickled about that. Now, I spent many hours getting the timing correctly on the lever of the carrier and the firing pin. That timing is a pain in the butt to deal with. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this, we're going to slide that up in there. And our 2 last remaining screws, I'm going to just hand start that, like let the thread catch a little bit. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to screw this in. And I know this has been a long build video. We're 2 hours and 17 minutes, but, and again, I can literally build this gun in 15 minutes from beginning to end. But me explaining and showing you guys and covering all this stuff is way more important than the amount of how quickly we get through this. It's one of my things that I'm trying to stop, is trying to rush through my assembly videos to save you guys a little bit of time, instead of talking about and discussing the aspect of each one of the parts in a kit, how it works and why you do or don't need to paint it, or be careful about the thicknesses, because you know, you can only account for so thick a paint and have parts still work. So, and if any of y'all wonder, and I'm just going to go ahead and put this out there, if y'all are having trouble with the dowel pins, one, I apologize, because I do size all of the holes. Do I miss a hole here and there? Yes, I'm human. But if you're all just wondering, these are 1/8 inch dowel pins. So if you have an 1/8 inch drill bit, you can properly size the hole. Just be careful and don't go all nuts with it. You know, just let it feed itself in and come back out. It's a minor, like teeny tiny little bit of adjustment. I could compensate for that in printing, but there's a thing about doing that. When you're printing across an entire fleet of printers over 14 plus years now, there is a average of a difference that I have between my printers. And the average of a difference in 2 parts is down to about 0.01 of a millimeter, or 0.008 of a millimeter. Extremely tiny. But that's the difference between a hole being a nice fit and too much slop. That, believe it or not, that little bitty tiny amount makes a good fit or a sloppy fit. And I'd rather it be slightly tight, that where it can be adjusted, than being a sloppy fit where everything just keeps wanting to fall apart. And because again, like I said, on the action inside of this, the more it's used, the better and smoother everything gets. So let me reach over here and switch these cameras for you. So this is 1873 lever action. I'm extremely stoked about how well this worked out. I love the fact that there's a real 1873 spring inside our magazine tube. And everything is just as like awesome as awesome can get. I mean, I sit here and will eject bullets constantly while my dog chases them because it's just fun. It's just fun. But, you know, and don't forget, for legality reasons, please put your orange tips on here. Okay, put your orange tips on. I'm not putting mine on right now because this will be painted. And then mine will be permanently affixed to the end of my replica barrel. There's my PSA. Please do that. So again, you'll have 6 shells. Please don't put real bullets in this just because you want, even if like your intent is because you want the real look of bullets and you want to eject them and stuff. Don't do it. And please don't load up. Technically an 1873 will hold 15 rounds, okay? Don't put 15 rounds in here because again, this spring, the more it gets compacted, the harder it pushes. Now I have put 12 in here and had it work fine. But that 12 also isn't with painted bullets to where there, again, that comes back to you can talc your bullets after you paint. So it allows them to still glide and don't have to worry about if you leave some sitting in the magazine and you have pressure pushing 2 painted surfaces together. If they're talced, you don't have to worry about that. So, I mean, I hope you guys enjoy this. If you have any issues or problems, just hit me up on the website. I do try to answer messages here on YouTube. Sometimes I do miss them because the notifications aren't the best all the time of whenever somebody leaves a comment or asks a question. On my website, you can just go send me an email directly from the contact page. Or you can contact support@traywickdesigns.com, and that comes directly to me because I am the support. I am the I'm the everything. But I hope you guys like this. I hope you guys appreciate it. And I thank you guys for the amount of support that you give me constantly all the time. There's nothing that means more to me than when I can do something or make something that somebody enjoys and somebody loves. So again, 1873 Winchester 24-inch barrel. Depending on if there's enough requests, I may make different barrel lengths. That does require a good bit of editing, especially on the barrel, since the taper is specific and so is the twist inside the barrel. It's not as easy as on the Colts and stuff, the Peacemakers, to make different length barrels. The mag tube wouldn't be that hard to cut it down. The spring wouldn't be that hard to cut it down. But depending on the request is whether or not I make a different barrel length or not. But right now it's the 24-inch. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you all enjoy the heck out of it. Like I said, if you have problems, let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you. And thank you guys very, very much.